Okay, the plan, okay, so then. Yes, we can, if you don't mind, because they didn't print many. I was gonna use my tablet as well. Yeah. Yeah, they only had like 2 up there, so I snagged one. There's a lot to print today. A lot to print, many pages. Yeah. Normally. Print this twice. There's only 2 on. So Aaron got one, we got the. I'll share with whoever sits here. I guess, yeah. It is. I kind of like this spot because I'm short. I usually take the one with the drawers. This one's. There's no. Karen. I'll be right back. I gotta bring something back to the office. Sorry. Should I wait to the roll call? What do you think?
I know that.
That's probably
a
minute.
A minute, right?
Yeah, go for it. I went in my head, was playing.
How's it going, my friend? You good? What? Yeah, just more work, same pay. That's state government. Thank you, buddy. Thank you. Same.
Looks like an important thing.
No, it is. It is. Definitely is. It's definitely a step in the right direction. There's no question about it. How you doing? Here. Hey. Hey. How's it going?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning Board's meeting for the month of May. Pursuant to Section 5, Public Law 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of the meetings for 2026 in the News Record of South Orange and Maplewood and the Star Ledger in December of 2025, and by filing of said notice in the office of the municipal clerk. Notification with access information. The meeting is available online for informational purposes only. Information was made public by publication in the News Record and on the township's website. Ms. Lewis, would you call the roll?
Mayor DeLuca,
Here.
Mr. Daffis,
Present.
Ms. Latham, Mr. Carlson,
Here.
Mr. Fryatt,
Here.
Ms. Scott,
Here.
Ms. Steig,
Here.
Ms. Ward,
Here.
Mr. Sullivan, and Chair Pashota.
Here.
Trend.
Whereas Section 7 provides the planning board has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting. Whereas it is the desire of this planning board to comply with the provisions of this act and at the same time conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner. Now therefore be it resolved by the planning board of the Township of Maplewood that it does prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in the deliberation of the planning board at all of its regular meetings. Can I have a motion to accept the operating procedures?
So moved.
And a second? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries. The minutes for our last meeting were disseminated electronically. Does anyone on the planning board have any corrections or amendments to those minutes? Seeing none, can I get a motion to accept the minutes from our April meeting?
I move the minutes be accepted.
And I'm happy to second that.
Mayor DeLuca.
Yeah.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes.
Ms. Latham,
Yes.
Mr. Carlson, Mr. Fryatt,
Yes.
Ms. Scott, Ms. Steig, Ms. Ward, Mr. Sullivan, and Chair Pashota.
Yes. All right, our first application this evening is case PB 25-02 for 333 Elmwood Avenue.
There you go.
Good evening. There
There
we
we
go.
go.
My name is Jennifer Phillips Smith. I'm an attorney with FBT Gibbons, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Marcus L. Ward Home, commonly known as Winchester Garden. Winchester Garden operates a CCRC, at least that's the use that's defined in your zoning code, known as a continuing care retirement community on the property located at block 31.34, lot 4. Winchester Gardens, as a CCRC, has independent living, assisted living, skilled nursing, and various amenities for its residents, such as dining and healthcare-related amenities. We are here this evening seeking preliminary and final major site plan approval along with bulk variance relief for a project that has two components. First, there is a proposal to remove an existing outbuilding that was previously used for employee housing but has been uninhabited since about 2013, and to replace that building with 3 cottages, with each cottage having 2 independent living units for a total of 6 independent living units. The second component of the project has to do with 2 small additions to the common house. Those additions were previously approved by this planning board back in 2015, along with a host of other improvements to the campus. The rest of the improvements were made, they've been constructed, but these 2 additions were not done yet, but we are here seeking essentially reapproval for those 2 small additions as well. This evening, we have 3 witnesses for you. We'll start with architecture, then move to civil engineering, and finish up with our planner. We did provide public notice in accordance with the municipal land use law and provided a copy of our affidavit to the board secretary in advance of the meeting. So unless there are any other procedural matters, we'd like to start with our first witness. Wonderful, thank you.
Please go ahead.
Mr. Breen. So our first witness will be Martin Breen, who is our architect. I'll have him sworn in and then I will put his credentials on the record.
Yeah, I do.
So Breen, just for the court reporter, if you could please state and spell your name for the record.
Martin Joseph Breen.
And Mr. Breen, we are going to be offering you as an expert in the field of architecture. If you could please summarize for the board your credentials, such as your education, licensure, and experience.
Yeah, first off, I've been with KDA Architects for the past 16 years. We're totally focused on senior living projects. And in terms of education, I have an NCA diploma from the College of Limerick in Ireland. That's 1983, hence the gray hairs here. And also a BA in architecture from Drexel University in Pennsylvania.
And you are currently licensed?
I'm currently licensed in the state of New Jersey, yeah.
And I don't think you've appeared here before Maplewood, but you've appeared before other boards and been accepted as an expert.
Yes.
And what are some of those boards?
Haddonfield Township in Camden County, East Greenwich Township in Gloucester County, and
That's good.
Egg Harbor Township.
Perfect. So we would like to offer Mr. Breen as an expert in the field of architecture.
We're happy to accept him. Ms. Phillips Smith, it might be easier for you to use the microphone over here
Wonderful.
instead of the two of you trying to share, because it is necessary in order for the audience to hear, for each of you to speak into the mic. So that just might be a little bit easier.
Wonderful. I will relocate there. As I do that, I'll start by asking, I know you've prepared some exhibits this evening. If you could please begin your presentation while I sit.
Okay.
Right ahead.
The first slide here tonight, the first slide here tonight is the original plan for the Marcus War home. This plan is dated 1925. It shows the original buildings on the site.
Sir, you're welcome to pick this up and carry it with you.
Okay,
You don't kill your neck there.
thank
We
you.
apologize for the awkwardness.
For Mr. Breen, we will mark this one as Exhibit A1. We do have paper copies that we'll mark as well and hand to the Secretary. So this 1925 plan, Mr. Breen, you did not prepare this plan, correct?
No.
1925 plan will be marked as Exhibit A1.
Yes, this plan just, we wanted to start with this to show you where the campus was in the original design by both John Russell Pope, who was our architect at the time, and the planner was Olmsted Brothers, famous landscape architect of the time. The Great Lawn still exists, is a primary piece of the property that remains to this day. The main entrance at that time was down at the intersection of Boynton and Elmwood Avenues. The entrance these days, or currently, it is off of Elmwood in this location here. It does show the at that time, like I said, the main entrance was here, and the area where the house built in 1939 is built in this location. The original design included a service yard and storage building in this area. So the original intent of the design was this was the backyard of the campus. That should just to show you context of what the campus looked like back in 1925.
Relevant to the application this evening, what we'll call the super cottage that is proposed for demolition was not part of the 1925 plan. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Continue, Mr. Breen.
Excuse me.
Yeah. I believe it is. Hear me or no? We got real close on.
There you go.
So this next page, we did submit, but I think for consistency, maybe we mark it as A2, just for, we don't get confused in the record. So Mr. Breen, A2 is a plan that was prepared by KDA, correct?
Correct. This is the proposed no cottages for the site. I'll walk you through the plan. Each building, 3 buildings, is made up of a duplex configuration, a large living space in the middle of the unit, 2 bedrooms en suite in each unit, entrance area with a study at the front, and each unit has its own garage. As you'll see in the site plans a little bit later, each unit has 2 parking spaces, one in the driveway as well. The square footages for each unit is about 1,925 square feet. The elevations, as you can see here, we took the vocabulary of the existing John Russell Pope design buildings on the main campus and incorporated the stone. We actually sourced the stone so it's compatible and actually add the brick chips into the stone. So it simulates the existing buildings on campus. We use the stucco relief panels around the building as well, and that stucco appears in the on all the ward buildings and the dining buildings in the main campus that John Rose built, and that color is, I call it the Winchester beige color.
Mr. Green, could you just verify the date on that plan?
I'm sorry.
Could you verify the date on that plan?
The date of the plan.
Oh, this plan is January this year, 26.
January 26th?
Yeah,
Have a month and a year, not a day?
Is it January 10th or January 12th, the exact date on it? Or is it just say January 2026 on the plan?
just well, this plan is dated 12/23/25. It was revised in early January too, but this is the date on this plan.
So the date is December 23rd, 2025.
No, yes,
No revision.
right, right. So it's a contemporary version of the older buildings. We do apply chimney location in center of the building, which is a prominent component of the Russell Pope buildings. That building, the chimney is actually an active fireplace for both units. They're going to have gas fireplaces in the buildings. This is the back side of the unit. This is an open gable with large expansive daylight coming into the living space. This is also an enclosed patio on the Elmwood side of the unit. We'll use shingle and metal panels on the roof, and they will simulate the color of the original slate on the ward buildings.
Mr. Breen, would you say that a great deal of care has gone into selecting the materials to make sure that they coordinate with the existing Winchester Gardens campus?
Yes, they do. This is a rendering, a rendered image of the front of the units. You can see the detail, what we've added. The original John Russell Pope buildings are rich in detail. And we're trying to incorporate as much richness and detail in these units as well. Each duplex has 3 primary gables on the front, 2 sub gables in the middle, and on the Emerald side, there's 4 primary gables. The gable element itself is a prominent element of the original buildings.
So just while we're marking exhibits, this exterior view 2, we'll mark that as exhibit A3.
Okay. So this is a side plan of the cottages. This is Elmwood Avenue here. The main gate is, sorry, up here. This is the loop road that runs around the interior of the campus. This is Winchester Way here, and the main entrance is up here. So the existing home is located here. So to make the units work on the site, There's quite a great difference between Elmwood and Winchester Way, about 6 feet in grade. So the original house sits high on the site, and you can only be accessed from the driveway that's here at the moment. The new units, to make them work and approachable and accessible from the site itself, or the residential component of the campus, was to cut into the site here and bring the units down. There's a Emerald Avenue here. So there's a retaining wall tucked into the grade. I think there was some mention of that in the historical commission's comments, that the 6-foot retaining wall would isolate the campus further from the Elmwood Avenue view. In truth, the wall is tucked down and you can't see it from Elmwood. So you can see here that it becomes accessible from the campus side. So those units, I'll go back here, you can access them through the front doors, and they can loop around onto the garage on the side. You can see here the glimpse of the retaining wall. We'll put a wood fence to stop people falling over that drop there as well. That retaining wall, I think Sybil will further explain, it varies from about 5'6" in height to tapers down on the sides to about 2 feet. So it's only in the middle unit that you're going to have a 5-foot retaining wall.
Ms. Smith, I think the sheet before this was not in the original submission, so I'll have to mark that also.
Correct, we'll mark that. You could put it back on the screen for one moment, just next page. There you go. We'll mark that as A4. And
The date on that one is 6/9/25.
the purpose of this sheet is to show the detail at the top, the preliminary site selection detail to show the retaining wall, correct?
Yeah.
And
And
we
all
will have our civil engineer present the latest site plan itself but we wanted to make sure the board had a view of how the retaining wall would sit relative to the buildings.
So the view from Elmwood Avenue, the existing house is about, I guess, it's 2.5 stories high. The new units are technically 1 story high. And not only that, they're tucked into the site by 5 foot, 5'6" to 3 foot at the ends. So you're seeing a lot less of the building from Elmwood, the new buildings from Elmwood Avenue. We did prepare a rendering that you would see from Elmwood Avenue of the new units.
Mark this rendering. It doesn't have a date on it, but we will mark this rendering as A5.
Okay.
Mr. Green, can you go back one slide and just indicate the length that retaining wall will run, just to give, it's a little difficult to tell from here.
The retaining wall starts here
Uh-huh.
and
And
ends
wraps
here.
all the way around.
Yeah. So in essence, and Civil can talk about the grades a little bit further. The highest part of the retaining is in the middle here, and it tapers down on the ends.
Okay. And the distance from, if you have it, from the fencing along Elmwood to the retaining wall?
It's not marked on there. We may defer that one to civil because they have,
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine. I just wanted to get a sense, but it looks like it's not like it's 3 feet or something. It's a decent distance.
You can see the existing house is, and Civil can confirm this, but it's 26'7" to the front of the existing house.
That's helpful. Thank you.
And the new line for the cottages It's set at, you can confirm it a little bit later. I think it's 40 foot 6 inches.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
So you can see prominently, you see the four gables from as you peek through the landscape buffer. We are going to lose a couple of trees, mature trees, in the development of these new cottages. We are including a new buffer between them with 12 to 14 foot trees on day one, and Civil will be prepared the landscape plans. And they can give you more detail about that buffer area. But you can see the wood fence here. The retaining wall is, you can't see it, but it's down below the fence there. That's the last of the images we have. Yes. Yeah, a new wood fence would be back at that point where the retaining wall is.
So just, we have the structure, retaining wall with a wooden fence on top, planted buffer, and then the metal fence, correct?
Can you repeat that again?
You have
Sorry, Jen.
Structures, and
Yeah.
then you have the retaining wall with the wooden fence on top, then the entire planted buffer, and then the metal fence, correct?
Correct.
So there's two fences.
Yes.
The fence that is on top of the retaining wall, is that similar style as the existing fence that is to remain? Am I understanding the design intent?
No, it's a wooden picket fence, much lighter in appearance. It's not like the front fence on the Elmwood Avenue side. You can see it here as more of a wood picket fence.
I see. You mentioned you had copies of these new exhibits that you could hand to us?
We have an extra copy of this one we could hand up.
I would love to see that. And also the original 1925 plan, if you had that.
Okay.
Thank you. The intent of the wood fence top the retaining wall is what, sir?
Just to stop anyone, nobody should be in that area except people landscaping in the area on the front. So it's stop people falling over that drop at the retaining wall.
Thank you.
Before we move on to the second component, we can go back to the height of the cottages and just discuss the height and number of stories.
The new cottages are 23 foot and 0.75 feet high. And that's from the grade average around the cottages. The existing two and a half story building is 28 foot above grade. So as we talked about previously, the cottages themselves are tucked deep into the site, at least from the public side of Elmwood. So you have a drop of anywhere from 5'6" to 4 foot from Elmwood, from taken away from that 23.75 feet. So what you're going to see from Elmwood is about 19 foot on average in terms of new cottage height.
There's been some discussion about how to characterize as whether we're 1 story, 1.5. This becomes relevant because under your code, there are different setback requirements for a 1-story building versus a 2-story building. There's no distinct setback requirement for a 1.5-story building. There's also no definition for story. So if you'll indulge us for a minute, I'll have Mr. Breen explain how we think the building should be characterized. But of course, we leave it to the board's interpretation. So, Mr. Breen, in this building, is there any livable space above the single story?
No, it's it's a one-story building. If you're looking at these windows here, there are dummy windows above the garage. So there's no living space on a second floor here. There's no second floor. The two of the main spaces within the unit are volume spaces. The great room or living room is a total volume space.
When you say
so-
volume space, you mean big open ceiling?
cathedral type ceiling. So, and the main bedroom is also the same. So if you look at the details of what the ordinance calls a half story, the calculations when you put them together would state if you don't include the volume spaces into the equation and you accept them as not part of the equation, that this would fall into definitely a one-story building category.
And when you refer to what the ordinance, do you mean with the Moskowitz definition that was brought up by the board's professionals?
Yeah, it's a complicated read. I have it in front of me here, but yeah,
So it is your professional opinion as the architect that it is a one-story building.
yes.
So I think you were about to move on from the cottages to the second component.
Yes.
Please continue.
Nick,
Right there. So we'll go ahead and mark this, oh, when you're ready. We'll mark this one as A6. This is the west elevation rendering.
I'm going to jump to, this is the ward building plan. I'm going to outline the areas of two additions that were previously approved by this board. And they are the library and activities room. That's the brown colored shade here. This is the existing building form here. And then on the left side of the main entrance here, this colored area here was another proposed addition, is an art room.
So we'll mark this as A7, the level 4 commons overall plan. Just so that if you stay on that prior sheet for one moment, just so we're clear, the library that you showed and the art studio that you showed are two additions that have not been added to the building, correct?
They have not been added.
But they were previously approved in 2015. And what we're proposing tonight is the same as what was previously approved in 2015, correct?
Correct.
Continue.
I should say the interior design and finishes are going to be of more contemporary finishes, but beyond that, this design remains the same. Color of carpet and paint might change. This is the addition on the right side. The library addition here gives the community two exciting new amenity spaces. There's a library here, which I'll show you the outside areas. Leads out to a trellis area for outdoor reading and relaxation. There's an activity room here that is open between both and can be closed down. There's a door out here to the back, which leads to a gathering area.
Before you, oh, go ahead, before you move on, that last we'll mark A8. It was the black and white level 4 commons. Continue, I'm sorry.
Yep. So at the time, we went through a lot of the additions. We followed a lot of historical guidelines to make sure that we were doing the right things, given that this is a historical structure. and we followed the design strategies. The Secretary of the Interior standards for treatment of historical properties for additions on the historical buildings. So we followed those national guidelines. And part of, as we go through the elevations of these additions, I can explain what we incorporated into the design. This is the left-hand side of the main entrance lobby. That's the art room addition.
Mark, that prior one is A9.
Okay. This is the elevations on the back of the war building, looking at the new additions. This is the art room addition here against the outline of the existing war building. And these are the activities room and library, which is all linked together.
Mark, this west elevation.
So one of the primary goals, we have an interior view, I'll show you later. John Russell Pope's buildings were beautiful. You can't deny them. One thing of the buildings of this period, they lack bringing in daylight to a building. And we design using daylight as a main factor for a senior living facilities these days. So that was a primary goal, to bring in more daylight. This image here is the new great room. I'll go back to the plan and show you that this is a combination of two existing rooms within the existing building. We're opening them up, but keeping the millwork and buildings where we can, and in fact, extend that language around the room.
This one is A11, the interior view.
Yeah. So one of the ploys and design, I guess, design, strategies that we used and recommended was to minimize the impact on the existing building. So where there's a window, we use that as an opening to a new space instead of cutting a new space, so minimizing the impact on the existing building. This was a larger window opening here. Windows at that time were full of grills, and there wasn't a lot of daylight coming in here. So this is the opening between that new great room and the activities room. You can feel just from this rendering, the new light-filled additions will not only create great interior spaces, but give what's not in the existing building great views of the Great Lawn, which was always part of I guess it's John Russell Pope had the technology of the glass systems we have these days. He would have incorporated big windows so you could see that Great Lawn. So we're trying to recapture that and the new additions.
One question on the two new additions. Can either one of them be seen from the public roads?
Sorry, Jen.
Can either one of the additions be seen from the public roadways?
No.
Are they entirely within courtyards within the site?
They're entirely at the Great Lawn side, the back of the war building.
Yeah.
The Great Lawn is out here. So these new additions, as you can see here, and maybe from that image I showed you, there's a lot of glass here. So great outdoor connection to the great outdoor spaces. Winchester Gardens is really rich, and they're kind of be your trees and outdoor spaces. This image,
Which will mark as A12,
Yep.
the rendering at library.
this image is of the activities and library addition. You can see the new windows. We are using a high-quality window system that simulates the window profiles of the original windows, but they just have a lot more glass. So one of the primary goals and the design guidelines is to keep the existing profile of the original building intact. So you can see the original building behind here, behind the additions. So we had to keep the roof pitches relatively low on these additions, not to smother the existing building in terms of seeing it from the Great Lawn. I think the elevations might show that a little bit better. So the new additions are kind of subservient to the existing building.
Mr. Breen, before we conclude your testimony, we received a letter from the Maplewood Historic Preservation Commission dated May 4th of 2026. You've had an opportunity to review that letter, correct?
I did.
Now, just for the record, we did not present to the Historic Preservation Commission, and we do note there are some statements in here that are not factually accurate. That's why we've taken great care tonight to make sure that we're presenting the facts as they're reflected on the plans. But to start, Mr. Breen, you showed us the 1925 plan and that this supervisor's cottage that is proposed for demolition was not on that plan, correct?
Correct.
And you have taken great care in the design of the cottages to use materials and design to you've used materials and the design in order to blend with the existing campus.
Yeah, we wanted to historically connect the new cottages with as strongly as we can with the better features of the original Polk buildings. Yeah.
And then as to the additions, it sounds like you've also taken great care to work those additions into the existing building in the following federal guidance as to the best way to incorporate new additions into existing structures of age, correct?
Correct. As I told you, we followed the federal guidelines. Not to bore everyone here, but there's a way of connecting new additions to older historical buildings too. So we used a plenum connection between original and new. This is small in scale, but this is the new addition. So there's a plenum that appears here. This is original building, new addition onto it. And there's a plenum connection between the both. So we applied that. So the building is independent, allows you to restrict or reduce the amount of incursion into the original building. And as I said, we only use existing windows to penetrate into the new additions. And you can see from the one image that I did show what the daylight might bring to the darker original rooms.
And so while we understand that the Historic Preservation Committee has presented their letter, we do respectfully disagree with with the ultimate conclusion. And again, we did not have the opportunity to present to them. So we are presenting all of the facts to you this evening. Under your ordinance, the letter is merely advisory, not dispositive. So we ask you to review the facts that we've presented as the care that's been taken with these buildings. And you'll hear more from our planner later about how this ties into your master plan and relevant elements of the master plan. But Mr. Breen, I don't have any further questions for you unless you have something that I've forgotten.
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Are there members of the planning board who have questions for Mr. Green regarding his testimony? Would you like to start, Mr. Fryer? You were nodding.
Sure, happy to. Just first of all, I understand that the project was approved in 2015. Can you talk a little bit more about the nature of that approval? And this is specifically, I understand, just for the additions to the manor house, not the new cottages on Elmwood Avenue. But can you just talk a little bit more about the nature of that approval? Was it for a master plan or for these specific additions? And why you are seeking reapproval of that today?
I will start by saying we did submit the resolution of approval with our initial package so that you do have it. At the time, there were a series of additions, including a health center, new dining facilities. It was a series of larger additions. This is a not-for-profit community, so they were able to undertake what they could at the time, which were several of the larger additions. These last two additions, unfortunately, at the time, they could not be accomplished. They've now, time has progressed and they're in a position financially to undertake those new additions now. But it's been 11 years. So we are back here to just seek that reapproval of those two small additions that unfortunately were not accomplished under the larger additions that were finished starting 2015.
Were those additions that were approved along with these two at that time, are they also with on the main house, the main building?
They were, well, there's several main buildings, but there were some that were on the main building, and then there were larger, much larger additions for the health center building, and then there was a reconfiguration of one of the buildings that had living units in it that allowed for that to be converted into and reconfigured.
Okay, thank you.
So there have been changes to the intended design, therefore you're seeking a new approval.
There have been no changes to the intended design. It has, however, been 11 years. We presented it as either a reconfirmation or if the board did not feel new approvals were necessary because there has been no change to the design, then we would be happy to build them. But given the passage of time, the protections from changes in zoning only last a certain period of years, 2 years. And so since we were coming back for these new cottages, we went ahead and added these two additions that were approved 11 years ago into the application as well. Sorry, two additions.
And have there been changes in zoning that have prompted this review?
No, not for that are relevant to this application.
Okay. An architectural question. The art room addition is very different from the library addition to the manor house in that the art room very much is connected lightly, if you will, touching as little of the existing John Russell Pope structure as possible, and therefore in keeping with Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties. The library is very different in that it is effectively has a much larger surface area that it's touching the historic building, specifically at the breezeway to the kind of octagonal connector space. Perhaps if you can flip to a plan. There you go. Either one of those is fine. Or maybe go back just one where we can see that whole, this one, right? So that octagon space on the right side is a real kind of circulation mixer, right? You arrive at that point and you can go one of three directions per John Russell Pope's original design. And the intention is that there's a real breezeway on your way there, but now you're completely filling that inside corner. Could you just speak a bit about the importance of siting the building this way and why you're choosing to undermine that existing historic design condition from the original architect?
Yeah, I would say that we talked about that Planum connection, which is very obvious in the art room addition. You can see the way it joins here. Similarly, in this addition, that appears vertically between the roofs and the existing walls. We have about a 3 foot wide, I'm going to call it a gully between the existing building and the roof of the new addition. So that plumbing connection was realized in that profile in the section between addition and existing building. We did also, as you go through the breezeway here, these are existing openings or windows here. So we use them as doorways into the new library. Once again, minimizing touching or creating new openings in the building. To your overall question, to create the necessary square footages that we needed for the library and activities and fit them in the great lawn side of the building, we had to infill this. We did study the relationship between the adjacent Meadows building here and here. There was fire regulations that pushed us back a minimum of 30 feet here as well. So I guess the program drove that expansion there. We couldn't do this on the left-hand side of the plan because this really part of the original build was this trellis structure and octagon pavilion outside. So the art room was a better fit for here on the left-hand side. Tucking in the bigger addition also meant that there was less impact from the Great Lawn looking at the new addition. It was tucked into a corner. I guess that's the architectural kind of overall approach that we took.
Yeah, thank you for that response. I think is the roof line of the library taller than that of the breezeway? In other words, I see a sloped roof.
The
There's no
breezeway
section
roof is here.
Yeah, that is the new roof. And then there's a vertical wall that is higher than the parapet of the existing breezeway. Is that correct?
This roof over here is above the nooks in the library. It doesn't cover the whole library space. So there's a flat roof behind. That's where the plenum connection is. So if I go to the elevations, the roof over the breezeway is higher than the new roof. And in fact, that breezeway has a second floor in it. There's another hallway and the breezeway above. If you go to the octagon, there's windows up here. There's a kind of octagonal space above there that
Got it.
brings you three
So
ways up there too.
So your new roof extends into the historic wall, not onto the top of it, but into the side
Into
of the wall.
And the wall, and as I said, the plenum connection on top steps down, minimizing the
Okay.
contact.
Thank you. That's helpful because I think one of the standards of the treatment of historic properties from the Secretary of the Interior is to have it be, any addition can be removable.
Yep.
Right? And so touching on a wall is easier than touching on top of the
Yeah.
parapet or removing parapet caps.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to hear that. And it is, I should say, a very high quality and considered architecture. So I'm just curious about that particular connection because I can't see it in your documents, but all the other ones appear congruous with the design intent. So thank you for that. My last question is on the nature of the property itself. Is this a designated historic property on either a state or national register or town register, to your understanding?
We're actually going to have our planner address that with specificity.
Very good, thank you. That's all for my questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Pride. Are there other members of the planning board with questions? Mr. Green? All right, seeing.
Chair, if I may.
Oh, certainly, Mr. Lemanowitz. I apologize.
Just to clarify the issue of the building's number of stories, as was said, the ordinance doesn't have a definition for story, but it defers anything that needs to be defined to Harvey Moskowitz's book of definitions. And in that book, it talks about different calculations that are done. I pointed out in my September 2025 letter that those calculations were not provided, but it appeared that this would count as 2 stories, because as you saw from the elevation, the attic space is actually taller than the living space. And the response letter that came with the last submission indicated they would ask for a variance if required. It wasn't a response to say that they disagreed or they didn't offer another definition or another calculation, which kind of seemed like they were going along with it. Now it seems that they're not. The issue is not the number of stories in itself. The issue is that in the ordinance, if you have more than 1 story, your setbacks change, which I relate to physical height. It's stories in the definition, but I think what the thought was, because you're linking number of stories to setback, it would seem that the idea was visible height of the building, and that's what the intent was, to increase that setback. And even in the testimony, it seems that even though these buildings have 1 level of living space, the physical building's about the same height as the existing one, which has 2 levels. So that's the background behind the comment. And if the board determine, well, again, we can't determine because we don't have the calculations that were asked for back in September. Then if it is ultimately decided that it's a 2-story building or equates to a 2-story building, there is a variance for setback required.
A variance would be required. Okay.
And we are prepared to have our planner address the variance in the alternative to provide testimony at the end. So our third witness will address it both ways.
Okay.
But just to clarify, there was one, I think, question in there about what the height of the existing building is. If you don't mind me just having Mr. Breen put that on the record before we move on. Mr. Breen, what is the approximate height of the existing 2.5-story supervisor's cottage?
28 feet.
28 feet? Thank you.
And the proposed height of the cottages?
23.75 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
They are, as we in the testimony showed you, the units are tucked down another between 3 feet as you go across the one side of the building.
Right, and hence the retaining wall.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Just once more, given the additional information, we're all set. Okay, are there any members of the public who have any questions for Mr. Green? Please come forward.
Do you prefer to have members of the public ask from here or from there?
Whichever, it might be easier to have them ask from there. I'm sorry to have you move. And ma'am, please.
Hello, my name is Jackie Herships. I had no intention of speaking tonight, but
Ms.
here we go.
Herships?
I've lived in
Ms.
Maplewood
Herships.
and South
Ms.
Orange.
Herships,
Excuse
could
me,
you please also give us your address, your street address?
it's terrible, sorry.
Can you please also give us your street address?
Where I live?
Yes, please.
I live in Winchester Gardens.
Okay,
That's
thank
why
you.
I've stepped up.
Okay,
I've
thank
been
you.
living in this town for quite a long time and never ever dreamed that I would live in Winchester Gardens. But here I am. And I have to say that it's an extraordinary experience to live in a historic, beautiful place. And I every day think about and talk to others about how much we hope that the integrity of the place is kept intact. I want to congratulate Sue Lippy for doing such a good job of maintaining it with all the
Ma'am,
forces.
do you have a question for Mr. Green?
I don't really have a question, but
Okay,
I
ma'am,
could frame one, which is how do you intend to keep to respect the integrity of this building as much as possible.
Thank you. And for the reporter, Ms. Hership's last name, if I'm not mistaken, is spelled Hership's. You're welcome. So, Mr. Green, could you please address Ms. Hership's question?
My second name is Breen, B-R-E-N, not Green.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I've been addressing you by the wrong name. I apologize.
Yeah, as I
The
said,
acoustics in this room are terrible.
we carefully designed these additions with the national guidelines and our own judgment too. We believe that we're improving the daily life and experience of the residents at Winchester Gardens. These new additions will be a great asset for them. They'll have a new connection to the Great Lawn that they don't have at the moment. The library and activities and art room will provide great amenities for the spaces. So I think in terms of respecting the existing building, we're doing everything we can. Durable materials matching the existing, following all the respecting guidelines that the national guidelines dictate, and just using good judgment in architecture. So we also respect, as I know the Winchester and Spring Point teams only want to make the right moves, and we feel that these additions make those right moves. So.
Great, thank you. Are there any other members of the public with any questions? All right, then, Ms. Phillips-Smith, please proceed.
So we'll bring up our second witness. Just going to address civil engineering. We'll let you get sworn in first, and then I will ask you about your credentials.
Yes, I do.
Before we begin, for the record, can you state and spell your name for the benefit of the court reporter?
My name is Adolf Montana, ADOLF, Montana, MONTANA.
So, Mr. Montana, we're going to be offering you as an expert in the field of civil engineering. Can you please summarize your education, experience, and licensure in the state of New Jersey?
I work for BS&S. I'm the project manager for this project. I have been with BS&S for over 25 years. I'm a licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey, and I have testified in multiple planning board hearings, and I've been here in Maplewood. I think I had the privilege of being here about 10 years ago.
So we would offer Mr. Montana as an expert in the field of professional engineering.
We're happy to accept him as such. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Montana, I know you have one exhibit, and then after that, you'll be testifying off the submitted plans. So let's go ahead and mark that first exhibit before you get started. I believe we're up to A13. If you could just tell us what that is.
Yes, this color exhibit is EX01 entitled Site Plan, which is a color version of the site plan sheet C4 that was included as part of the package. Last revised April 28, 2026.
Right. Now you've heard Mr. Breen testify as to the architecture. If you could please fill us in on the actual site layout, particularly for the cottages.
Sure. I'm just going to start globally and then come into the project specifics. So the proposed site is approximately 35.9 acres. It's known as the Winchester Gardens. This site is also identified as Block 31.34, Lab 4. The project area is situated on the CCRC zone within the township of Maplewood. The proposed site is located along Elmwood Avenue between Access Road and Boyden Avenue. The project site is bordered by residential homes to the north, west, and south, and the Maplewood Community Pool in the east side. The site entrance to the campus is at the intersection of Elmwood Avenue and Borden Terrace. The proposed development is along the Elmwood Avenue and is currently developed with an existing 2.5-story building, that's my understanding, adjacent to Winchester Way. There are 5 parallel parking spaces along Winchester Way that are going to be removed along with the existing 2.5-story structure. The applicant is proposing to construct 3 duplex residential cottages with 6 independent residential units. The proposed cottages will be accessed using the existing driveway on Elmwood Avenue, and they will be located along Winchester Way. The 2 cottages on each corner would have a private driveway, while the interior cottages will have a shared driveway. Each unit will have a garage. In terms of zoning requirements, the setbacks is into question, but I'll just put it out there. Setback required to me is 40 feet. We're proposing 40.4. Buffers requires 50 feet. We're proposing 40.4, where we believe the variance is required. Maximum building coverage requires 20%. We're proposing 14.73. Maximum building height requires 1 story. Based on the definition, it could be 2 stories of 40 feet. We're proposing 23.75, how our project architect just testified. Maximum lot coverage requires 45%. We're providing 32.47. In terms of parking, the entire campus right now has 390 existing spaces, where 104 spaces are below the main building. There are 18 ADA spaces, 38 garages, and 2 loading spaces. Like I mentioned before, we're proposing to remove 5 spaces along Winchester Way. We're proposing, based on the unit count, we're required to have 9 parking spaces, where we're providing 18 spaces, 6 in the garage, 6 in the driveway, and 6 on the roadway. The total parking spaces after construction of the project will be 393 spaces. In terms of site elements, we're proposing 6-inch Belgian block curbing throughout in the front of the property that matches existing conditions. We're also providing 5-foot wide sidewalks and 8-foot wide crosswalk for pedestrian circulation. We also proposing concrete driveways for each unit. And as was testified before, we have a 6-foot tall retaining wall in the rear of the site, and that has a wooden split rail fence that is approximately 4 feet in height. In terms of topography, the existing site right now slopes from north to south towards Winchester Way, and the other half what he called grazed down from the center of the site towards Elmwood Avenue. Elevation-wise, the center of the site is approximately 252 feet, and it goes towards the north at elevation 248 and elevation 250 on Elmwood Avenue. So due to the topography of the site, as I was mentioned before, we will need a 6-foot retaining wall in the rear of the cottages to be able to have the grading from the front entrance to the sidewalk be ADA. So that would require us to drop the proposed buildings to be able to be ADA accessible. And before also, the reason for the fence has to do with fall protection. Want to make sure, God forbid somebody falls and trips and falls down 6 feet. In terms of grading and drainage, we're proposing HDPE piping. We're proposing trench drain to collect all the surface runoff into 2 proposed small-scale infiltration basins. The 2 small-scale infiltration basins, they're located at this location between the 2 cottages. I have one here, one there. And those infiltration basins will collect all the water, and it will be pre-treated with 2 spay filters, which are water quality devices. And those water quality devices will pre-treat the water before it goes into infiltration basins. The two infiltration basins are basically single traps is 2.5 foot modules and 3.5 foot modules, and they're manufactured by Stone Trap. They're basically concrete structures with an open bottom where you can hold the water and then treat it and infiltrate it. Also, all the roofs are proposed to be collected via piping and then sent to the infiltration basin. So this project qualifies as a major development and therefore is subject to the new green infrastructure stormwater management requirement and JAC 7:8. So therefore, that's where we prepared this drainage system to comply with that system. So basically, we need to comply with water quantity, which we do. We're detaining the 2, the 10, and the 100-year storm, and we're reducing it by 50%, 75%, and 80%. In terms of water quality, we're only increasing the motor vehicle surface by 0.02 acres, and therefore we're not obligated to do water quality. But because we're infiltrating, we're providing 2 water quality devices before we go into the infiltration basins. In terms of recharge, we're considered a metropolitan area, PA1, so therefore recharge is not required as either. In terms of utilities, we are proposing 6-inch PVC for sanitary sewer laterals. The laterals will be connected to an existing sanitary sewer line on Winchester Way. Same thing with water. We're proposing a 1-inch line that'll be connected to the existing water main on Winchester Way. We're also proposing 4-inch conduits for electric, 1-inch lines for gas, 2-inch conduits for telecommunication. And also those will be connected on Winchester Way. In terms of landscaping, we're removing 21 trees. We're removing 1 evergreen tree. It's approximately 36-inch in diameter. We're removing 4 deciduous trees, approximately ranging between 30 to 60-inch in diameter. 16 ornamental trees. Those are 4 to 16-inch in diameter. So to compensate for that, we're proposing plant material. We're proposing a total of 17 trees. 8 of them will be deciduous shade trees that they range in height between 14 to 20 feet, and some of them are 22 to 22 feet, and it also ranges in caliber between 2 inches and 4.5-inch calibers. In addition, we'll be installing 5 ornamental trees, and those will be 12 to 14 feet in height and also range between 2 inches and 2.5 inches in caliber. The other trees that we'll be proposing to plant is 4 evergreen trees. Those range between 10 and 12 feet high, and the caliber also will be between 2 and 2.5 inches. So we're proposing 17 trees. Therefore, we need to do compensation for 4 trees to the Maplewood Tree Fund. In addition, we're also proposing to install shrubs, grasses, ground covers, approximately 157 plant material to replenish the buffer and the front end. In terms of lighting, we're providing 5 LED light fixtures with a Type 3 distribution mounted at 15-foot height, manufactured by Lumka. The light fixture will be mounted on a circular black pole. We're also proposing 17 LED bollards that are along the sidewalk on the street. They're a Type 3 distribution mounted at 3 feet 8 inches in height, manufactured by Cyclone. In addition, we're proposing 38 LED wall-mounted lanterns. They're also color black, manufactured by Hinsky, and those will be mounted along the cottages. In the rear, we're proposing 6 medium hanging lanterns for each patio, mounted at 8 feet high. All fixtures will be LED, full cutoff, color black, with a temperature of 3,000 Kelvin. The average foot candle for the lighting design on the driveways will range between 1.3 foot candles to 2.1 foot candles, and the sidewalk will be 5.2 foot candles. The lighting design meets the Township of Maplewood ordinance requirements. The light fixtures will be equipped with automatic lighting controls for dusk to dawn with dimming capabilities. And then I guess we should talk about the comment letter that we got,
So you received,
GPI.
correct, we received a letter from GPI dated May 8th of 2026. And there were some technical comments, specifically the first one, I think for the civil engineer would be number 10. So we're prepared to provide the proper certification for the retaining wall, correct?
That's correct.
Right, you touched on number 11. Number 12, you can comply with providing the trench drain detail, correct?
Yes, we'll add the details to the revised plans.
And then 13 and 14 are asking for technical revisions to the stormwater manager report and the maintenance plan and field measures. As a condition of approval, should this board approve the application, those technical cleanup items can be addressed in resolution compliance, correct?
Correct. We'll revise the stormwater management report as requested by the planning board engineer.
And then the remaining comments that report are planning comments, which we will have our planner address as the next witness. I do not have any further questions for Mr. Montana.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Montana. Are there members of the planning board with questions for Mr. Montana regarding his testimony? Of course, please go ahead, Mr. Price.
Are the buildings universally accessible?
Yes.
It appears that there's a step at the front door.
No steps.
Mr. Montana, in earlier plan revisions or submissions, there was a step, correct? And they've been removed in the latest submission?
Leave originally, yes, but the plans that PSNS prepared, those steps were removed. That was on the previous engineer.
So you're correct. We caught that too.
Very good, thank you.
I realized I neglected to ask one question, so I apologize.
That's okay.
We talked about setbacks earlier, and you may need to refer to the plans for this, but when you mentioned the setback of being 40 feet and a little bit, that was in one particular location, correct? There's greater setbacks.
The worst case scenario is the 40.1 that I mentioned before.
Okay. So are there areas of the cottages that are set back at least 50 feet? So right there at the corner is 50 feet. Okay, thank you.
So does that mean that the 1-story requirement is 40 feet and the 2-story requirement is 50 feet? Is that?
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Lemanowitz, did you have any questions for Mr. Montana?
Just to make a comment on the applicant's acceptance of my comments regarding drainage. I don't foresee addressing those. I don't see that addressing those comments is going to make or break the project. It may require a little enlarging of the detention system, but we're not talking, multiples. So I think that it's feasible that can be done without any dramatic design changes. If this was an above-ground basin, I might be different about that, because obviously if an above-ground basin has to be made bigger, you might lose trees, you might lose something else. But this is an underground system that it's not going to be visible no matter what we do to it.
Okay.
And again, with respect to the setback, yeah, for a 1-story, it's 40. For a 2-story, it's 50.
Thank you. Thank you for confirming that. With respect to the trees, it looks like, or am I correct in saying that a lot of the trees need to be removed because their roots would be damaged by the construction of the retaining wall? Is that what's going on here?
If you look at the exhibit, the light gray, those are the existing trees that are going to remain, and the color plant material is what we're proposing to install. So some of the material, like I've testified, we're removing 21 trees. Those are due to the retaining wall. Once you install the retaining wall, you're going to kill the root
Sure.
system.
Sure. I was thinking specifically about the larger trees. I'm looking for the list of tree, there it is. Can you point out where the evergreen is that has a 36-inch diameter?
That's a tough question. Exactly where the tree is.
Or roughly where that tree, is that a healthy tree? Like, I recognize that the plan is to remove 21 and to plant 17, but per your testimony and the diameters provided, the amount of total tree, for lack of a better measurement, is considerably smaller than what's being removed. What's being replaced is 17 trees that are between 2 and 4.5 inches in diameter, and some very, very large mature trees are being removed. And I guess I'm disappointed that that is part of the proposal. I don't know if you considered a workaround to not have to remove such large mature trees from the property.
Yeah, I think like there was previously testified that the retaining wall and then you add the fence on top of that, the building's going to be sunk down about 4 to 5 feet. And now you're talking about adding the plant material that I testified. Some of them are between 12 to 14 feet and some of them between 20 to 22 feet. Then you're not going to see anything from Eltonwood if that's what you're concerned. And then we adding the additional evergreens and shrubs on the bottom and ground cover. You're not going to see anything. At least that.
No, it's not so much, my concern is not so much what would be visible or not. I appreciate that you are planting 17 trees. I appreciate that it will be beautifully landscaped in keeping with the property. I guess I'm just looking at the loss of some very large mature trees and wishing that there was a way around that. But it sounds like the roots of those trees would be damaged to the point where it would harm the trees. So there is no, it sounds like it was considered, but there is no workaround. Would that be accurate?
Correct, because what's driving the retaining wall is to be able to be ADA accessible from the front street. And the only way to do that is to keep the first floor elevation low. And then to minimize impact along Elmwood Avenue, we want to put a retaining wall as close as possible to the building to minimize disturbance and trying to keep it as nice as possible.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else from the planning board have any questions for Mr. Montana? Seeing none, are there any members of the public with any questions for Mr. Montana regarding his testimony? Seeing none, we can proceed.
Thank you. We'll proceed with our last witness, planned witness this evening. We have our planner, Donna Holmquist. While we are queuing up the exhibits, I'll ask Ms. Holmquist to be sworn in and then state and spell your name for the record.
Yes, I do. My name is Donna Holmquist. My last name is spelled Holmqvist. I'm the CEO and founder of Preferred Planning Group LLC. My business address is 110 Chestnut Ridge Road, Suite 192, Montvale, New Jersey. I'll give my qualifications for the board. I have a Bachelor of Arts from Rutgers University. I have a master's degree from NYU. I also have a certificate in historic preservation from Drew University. I serve on the board of professional planning advisors for NJPO. I did a workshop for them, a webinar on AI data centers. And if you looked at your digital planning newsletter, my environmental justice article is on the front of that. I've testified in over 130 communities as an expert professional planner, in addition to testifying in federal court, tax court, superior court, and municipal court.
And so with that, we will offer Ms. Holmquist as an expert in the field of professional planning.
Happy to accept her as such. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms.
Credentials. Just a few credentials.
It's not Mrs. Holmquist's first.
Oh,
first
well, let me
testimony.
just say, I'm licensed in the state of New Jersey, the most important one, right, since 1990, and a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners. My license and credentials are in good standing. Thank you for reminding me.
Thank you. So Ms. Holmquist, obviously you were here and you heard the testimony of both our architect and our civil engineer, and you've had a chance to review the submitted plans as well as the master plan and zoning ordinance here in Maplewood. Is that correct?
Right. We looked at all the municipal reports, your master plan, your historic preservation element, all the plan submittals, and I'm here this evening to give you my findings and conclusions regarding any potential relief that this applicant is requiring of you. We have three planning exhibits. The first one is up. I just want to qualify and explain what you're looking at. We subscribe to Near Map for our aerial imagery. The image you're looking at is a Near Map vertical image dated April 8th, 2026, so extremely recent. We've outlined the site in the green thin line, and we obviously have labeled it for you. I always think it's interesting to show the surrounding area, the context, and especially if any of the board members or the public has not been into the interior of the Winchester Gardens complex. You can see of the 35 acres, what was referred to in testimony as the Great Lawn, that would be in the back corner of the property. We calculated that on Near Map to be 12 and a half acres of the 35 acres. So hidden from view, but a very substantial open space exists on this property. The majority of the property has 50-foot buffers around the perimeter in a wooded condition, as you can see from the aerial. Of course, the villas are shown. I'm going to refer to north as up. I know it may be shown differently on some of the exhibits, but I'm going to call north up just for my testimony. The villas are shown to the north. Again, that has a 50-foot buffer adjoining residential properties. And then coming around to Elmwood Avenue, I personally went out there to do the field work for this and take the photographs and set up with staff what I felt like were the things that the board should be paying attention or be advised of. Starting at the top of the map, we have cited an elevation difference. What that relates to is some or most of the properties, the single-family homes that are opposite the site on Elmwood Avenue, you do have a minor slope up, front yard slope up, which differentiates it from the sidewalk. Sidewalks are on both sides of this road. Moving down, where I've listed horizontal curvature, you could see that on some of the exhibits that were in front of you already, but here you can see the entire length where the road slants, and it slants inward towards our site, which does curtail our ability to conform with the setbacks if you decide that we need the variances. You have a bike route on Elmwood Avenue as well. We're pointing to the existing vegetation gap. There are, many mature specimens. Some of them may be reaching the end of their lifetime, or perhaps with the storms we have, suffered some damage. But we did note that there is a bare spot there for vegetation near the existing building. Of course, we're highlighting the main entrance and the gatehouse, which you're well aware of, the pedestrian crosswalks that exist in that area. And towards the southern end of Elmwood Avenue, we've called out the vertical curvature, very slight grade upward that doesn't really cause any issues, but lends to the character of the area. And then, of course, adjoining us, you can see the community pool to the south of our property. We took photographs.
Before we move to the next exhibit, I just want to mark this one, the aerial, as A14.
Well, the existing conditions, it's dated May 2nd, prepared by my office.
As you move to the next sheet, we'll mark this one as A15. If you could tell us, tell the record what it is, please.
Right, this is showing photographs that I took in April. I believe it was April. And April 17th, to be exact, were the photographs. And we tried to select two of the homes that are directly opposite the site, which we thought would be most impacted. The top left is 354 Elmwood Avenue. And if you look at the bottom photograph, you can see that house on the right side of the photograph, pretty much directly opposite. The home just to the north of that is 358. And you can just make that out barely in the photograph on the bottom left. So we were very focused on those homes and what they would see. And of course, you know, the gatehouse gives a lot of character to the entrance.
Just on the photograph marked site frontage on the left-hand side, that is the building proposed for demolition, correct?
Yes, yes, it is. And I'm going to describe in detail the setbacks and the zoning requirements as well as the master plan, but I just wanted to kind of set the tone with what our existing conditions are for this proposed development. We are proposing the internal additions that you heard, but I'm more fixated on the impact of the cottage construction on Elmwood Avenue and the homes directly opposite that. As you heard, we're recessing the cottages for ADA compliance, and that necessitates sinking them down. And this retaining wall is not a uniform length. I don't know whether you have picked that up on the plans, but it is highest in the middle, but it is recessed into the grade, and it tapers towards the ends. Some of the plan benefits that I think you should consider regarding the replacement of the existing building with the 6 cottage structures is, to me, that building existing 2.5 stories looks somewhat institutional. I think you could see from the elevations that were shown to you of the proposed cottages. In my opinion, as a planner, that's a much better transition between the CCRC property and the single-family homes on the opposite side of Elmwood Avenue. To me, it creates a more open neighborhood feel. We're fitting those buildings into the terrain with the extensive buffer planting. The existing building is only 34.63 feet from the right-of-way, and it's 2.5-story building. So we're actually improving that condition and putting in a shorter building. So I think we're going to improve. I understand the board's concern about landscaping, et cetera. But when we look at the height differential between what exists now and what we're putting in, I think it's going to be an improvement. We're increasing that 34.63 setback to a minimum of 40.4 feet. Our northernmost cottage, all the way on the right side, if you're looking at the plan, that does comply with 50 feet setback. So I don't think we're far off from what you may determine is required. The dense multi-layered landscaping, if you looked in detail at the landscape plan, to me, very Olmsted-esque, if you will, with a lot of variations in height, a lot of variation in the planting specimens, and creating privacy and visual interest. I think the patio area for the outdoor seating for the cottages is also fitting of an Olmsted design, where we're trying to unify the natural environment and the enjoyment of it for the residents. The entire property, through its history, and we're very conscious of the history here, it's a very unique history, is the English garden type design. And that great lawn and the other open courtyard areas of this site are very befitting of the 1920s aesthetic. You heard the testimony about the low-level lighting. I don't think we're going to be intrusive at all with the lighting. When we look at the front yard setbacks of the single-family homes opposite us on Elmwood Avenue, They are required to only have a 25-foot setback in the zone. They're in a different zone, of course, than our property. But when we dimensioned it on near map, many of them are between 30 and 50 feet. They're very deep lots. They are much larger than the minimum required for that zone. And so I think that's something that you should consider also. They're all developed. Moving to the zoning, the real reason I'm here. The site is in the CCRC zone, and section 271-70 is the regulating portion of your ordinance for that zone designation. All of our uses on this property comply with the zoned uses. The ordinance, and I'm going to cite the exact section, it is 271-70I5A3. And that is the portion of the code that requires setbacks to the property line of for a one-story maximum 30 feet. I think it's interesting that it says maximum 1 story, 30 feet. So we have both of those. It's not just 1 story or 30 feet. That requires a 40-foot setback. And our building, as testified to by the project architect, our cottages, are only 23.75 feet. So irregardless of whether you're looking at this as a 1-story or a 1.5-story building, we are well below the 30 feet. To me, that means we should be held to the standard for 1-story maximum 30 feet, being that we're 23.75. So again, if you've favored that interpretation, you would require 40 feet, and our minimum is 40.4. As I said, that building all the way on the right has the 50-foot, so it even exceeds that. And again, just to reiterate, the existing building that we're demolishing, your code calls for 2-story maximum 40 feet. That requires a 50-foot setback. And so the existing building is 2.5 stories, but 30 feet or less, basically. And that building has only a 34.63 foot dimension. So that's why I think we are improving the situation here. Looking at the minimum buffer requirement to the property line or the street line, that is cited in section 271-70I5A4. And there again, there's, to me as a planner, some interesting language in there, subject to interpretation. That talks about a 30-foot setback to all exterior property lines, 50 feet from all secondary and major streets as defined in the master plan. And then, of course, it calls for preserving existing vegetation subject to the approving authority. Our units, I'm going to call them A, B, C, D, E, F. They're grouped in two. AB is 40.4 feet setback. CD is 40.4. And then EF varies 43.5, and F itself is 50 feet. Now, I looked at the master plan to see how is Elmwood Avenue classified, and it is a local street in your master plan. So I think you would be within reason to not hold us to the 50-foot based on what I see in the master plan as the classification, that we would be required for 30 feet, but of course the board interprets the ordinance. We are in compliance with every other area and bulk standard for the CCRC zone. So really, we're just focused on the setback from Elmwood Avenue. We heard testimony from the project architect about the Moskowitz definition. Maplewood does not have a definition of story. We looked at the most recent edition of what's called the Moskowitz book, which is really called the complete illustrated book of development definitions. The most recent edition is the fourth edition, and that's from 2017. That talks about a story. I'm just going to read the definition. That portion of a building included between the surface of any floor and the surface of any floor next to it, or if there's no floor above it, then the space between the floor and the ceiling above it, and including basement if the basement ceiling is greater than 5 feet above the average adjoining grade. Then that book has a definition of half-story, and that definition says a space under a sloping roof that has an intersection of the roof and wall face not more than 3 feet above the floor level, and in which space the possible floor area with headroom of 5 feet or less occupies at least 40% of the total floor area of the story directly beneath. As you heard from our project architect, all of the living space is on the ground floor of these cottages. There is some design of, I'll call it vaulted ceilings in the great room and the master bedroom, but there is no living space above the ground floor. So to me, this building is a one-story building, but given that there is some space between the actual roof surface and the ceiling of the first floor, you may interpret it to be a 1.5-story building. Turning to the historic preservation element, maybe we can flip to the, thank you, to the third exhibit that we prepared. This is entitled Site Compatibility and Continuity. And
Mark, that one is A16.
yes, that's dated May 2nd. This photographs are from the same date that I mentioned before. And here we really were focused on the streetscape and the character of the neighborhood. And I think the photographs are self-evident. We're looking from Borden Terrace on the upper left, and then we're standing in front of 342 Elmwood Avenue in the middle picture. And then we're trying to give you an accurate representation of the building to be demolished as seen from the opposite side of the street. And then in the bottom left corner, we're looking the opposite way. And you can see on the right, the trees and the building to be demolished. And of course, to the left of the picture is residential property 364 Elmwood Avenue. So we have reviewed the master plan, the historic preservation element, the comments and conclusions offered by the, I believe it was the vice chair of the Historic Preservation Committee. And we offer the following analysis for you regarding that. We do not believe this site is on the state or national register. We looked at the Essex County inventory of sites and, of course, your municipal master plan. The New Jersey historic sites are designated on an online source called Lucy, L-U-C-Y. I believe it's something like look up cultural sites yourself, I think is why it's called Lucy. But there it's very clear. You can see the lot lines, the parcels in a community. Our site, our CCRC site, is identified as individual identified. The most recent historic preservation element prepared highlights this site for, quote, further study. That's the exact language in the historic preservation element. There are maps in the historic preservation plan element that one of them is entitled Historic Areas Identified for Local Designation Consideration. Our site is not highlighted on that map. There are other sites in the community that are. This site does not, based on that document, have local historic landmark status. That's not to say it's not an important site, but it just does not have that designation in there. The historic preservation element also calls out the entrance building, iron gates, as something they believe is significant. But bottom line is, there is no formal program to protect anything here. And even so, you know, as I said, I have a certificate in historic preservation from Drew University. Historic preservation is, some may feel sadly, advisory. Nobody really can stop somebody from demolishing an historic building if that's what they want to do. Usually it becomes a grassroots effort to save something. But I think here we have a situation where the applicant, the owner, and the decision makers of this property are very conscious of its significance and its very unique history. And they want to safeguard that. They want to do alterations that are appropriate in nature, most importantly, not disruptive of the historic research. And as our project architect said, there has been mindful decisions to adhere to the Secretary of Interior standards. I think we are achieving the maintenance of a link to the past or the community. We are maintaining the character through the architecture of these cottages. And in my opinion, the landscape plan carries forward the Olmsted character, the Olmsted imprint, if you will, that exists on this property. We are trying to modernize the functions of this site, making structures that are ADA compliant and have adequate climate control, are economically and physically viable for the CCR use and independent living, where the whole goal of a CCR site is to have the population age in place. These cottages are not overpowering the site in any way. They're very low profile and they replicate the character of the Pope design. Looking at your, I'll call it real master plan, but I don't mean any slate regarding the historic preservation, but this is where we really talk about the land use goals of the community as opposed to just historic preservation goals. We are improving the drainage, as was testified to. We are not impacting the existing residential properties on Elmwood Avenue. Most importantly, your 2023 master plan, the entire overriding goal of it is equity. And equity in access to high-quality, affordable housing and strong, attractive neighborhoods. The master plan talks about context sensitivity, specifically breaking up bulk and improving transitions, encouraging reinvestment and upgrades, and the exact language that I took out of their institutional good neighbor. We have this in the right-hand corner of our exhibit to stress that to you. The land use plan map shows our site as designated CCRC. There is no proposed change in the land use plan to Winchester Gardens. It calls for preserving and creating affordable housing opportunities, appropriate infill, building on community assets, minimizing unwanted impacts, and reinforcing the residential quality of life with smooth transitions of use. I think our cottage design of introducing 6 cottages, removing a dated building that is not going to serve a modern purpose, as was investigated by the project architect and the project team of Winchester Gardens. We are trying to modernize this in a way that is extremely and extraordinarily sensitive to its unique history. The variances, if you decide we need them for setback from Elmwood Avenue, they further the purposes of planning. I'll cite 4 of them from NJSA 40:55D-2. Those are the purposes of planning in the municipal land use law. The first one being subsection A, municipal action for the appropriate use, land use for promoting the general welfare. G, sufficient space in appropriate locations for a variety of uses for all New Jersey citizens. I, promoting desirable visual environment, and L, encouraging senior citizen housing construction. So lastly, I'm going to go through the statutory criteria that we would need for you to grant C variance for the setback if you decide that we need it. C1 is regarding the physical features of a site, and C2 is the public benefits of the deviation represent a better zoning alternative. So for the planning rationale for the C1 is that we're providing a very substantial buffer. We actually calculated what the required buffer would be on this property. If you're looking at the site plan and you just go even with where the buildings are on the left and the right, the cottages, and you measure that linear dimension, it's about 347 linear feet. And if we measure a depth of 50 feet, so 347 times 50, that comes out to 17,350 square feet of open space. When we look at the total encroachment, because it's different, because you remember the buildings are on an angle there. So our total encroachment scaled off the plans is only about 1,620 square feet. And if we take that encroachment of 1,620 square feet, we divide it by our total requirement for that 50-foot deep buffer, we are only encroaching 9%, actually 9.3%. Or another way to consider this is that we're providing about 90% of the required buffer. We are constrained by the geometry of the internal roadway. You can see that very clearly from the plan and also on the aerial. And we are trying to fit this in the best way possible into the site. For the C2 rationale, we have very large internal space, as I pointed out, 12.5 acres is that great lawn area. We comply with every other zoning requirement of the CCRC. We are modernizing this for independent living so that the seniors can age in place. We're also providing one attached garage, which I think is a nice element of design. The buildings will all be energy efficient, ADA compliant. We're enhancing stormwater. This is a logical redevelopment of the existing institutional use, and it preserves the aesthetics and minimizes the impacts. And lastly, providing housing option and open space for the seniors. The negative criteria, no substantial detriment to the public good and no substantial impairment to the intent and purpose of the zoning plan and zoning ordinance. Aging in place, meeting changing life cycle needs of the residents, having a design with a small scale and compatibility, removing the large building and replacing with cottages to complement and transition to the single family homes opposite, facilitating that garden concept that Olmsted Brothers are so well known for, and lastly, recessing this building into the landscape to further minimize its height and mass. That concludes the planning testimony, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
One follow-up question. So after reviewing this, the criteria for C variances, is it your professional opinion that the facts presented here, based on your analysis, would therefore meet the criteria required under the municipal land use law for the board to grant C variances should they determine that a variance is required for the building being less than 50 feet from Elmwood Avenue?
Yes, based on my analysis of the site conditions, the proposed plan, your master plan, and the requirements of the land use law, yes.
Thank you. Those are all the questions I have for Ms. Holmquist.
Great, thank you very much. Ms. Ward has questions for, oh, here, is it easier to get to mine?
Okay. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. You cited the master plan about creating affordable housing. Will this, because there's 6 units being developed, will one be affordable Does that, per our ordinance requires 20% set aside?
I can actually answer that.
Okay.
So we have informed the town here that we believe there was an error because there will not be affordable housing here because this is not a residential use. So a CCRC is in fact a non-residential use, is our view. It is licensed by the state of New Jersey as having independent living units, assisted living, skilled nursing. We are aware of the recent zoning ordinance. This application was actually filed and was complete before the adoption of that ordinance regardless.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I mean, we've had that ordinance for a while now.
no, the
but
ordinance was actually adopted in March of this.
Not the 20, well, then it was 15%. Yeah, it was 15% prior, so I guess you wouldn't, yeah.
There is actually a provision within your CCRC existing ordinance that requires certain payments for affordable housing, which has now also been superseded by the Non-Residential Development Fee Act.
Okay.
So the zoning here did account for payments for housing as a non-residential use.
Okay. No money, no,
Right.
we get nothing. No affordable housing. Yeah, we get nothing. All right, well, okay. And then just when you're talking about context and you showed the aerial, I haven't been back there. I saw that there's like all the villas. Can you just give a little bit of background of what they look like? Does the cottage sort of match that style? When were they built? How many are there? Any photos?
I think these look better than the villas that are there.
I've
my
never seen
honest
the villas.
opinion.
Do you have any?
I think they were built in the 1990s, maybe? 1990s. And, you know, these cottages, I think that's the distinction, villas versus cottages, right? First of all, these are broken into groups of two. So I think really following the Pope plan, if you will, to have that English cottage design. And this is really the front-facing part. So I consider this a superior plan to what exists on the site, although what exists on the site is very nice.
Okay. Yeah, I would have appreciated a photo of that, just for context.
Of the villas?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Does anyone else from the planning board have any questions for Ms. Holmquist regarding her testimony? Seeing none, are there any members of the public who have any questions for Ms. Holmquist regarding her testimony? Seeing none, go ahead.
That concludes our presentation then, obviously subject to it being open to the public. Thank you.
Great, thank you. At this point, are there any members of the planning board who, actually, no, I'm sorry. Before I do that, are there any members of the public who wish to make any comments regarding this application, either in support of or in opposition to this application?
I don't need a. I do. Do you need my name? Corinne Malsby,
Please spell it for the court reporter.
Corinne, last name Malsby, Maulsby. And I reside at 545 Ridgewood Road. Good evening, Chair and members of the Planning Board. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the Maplewood Historic Preservation Commission. The HPC is a duly constituted municipal commission established by local ordinance with rights under the MLUL and Maplewood Municipal Code. The commission is charged with advising the Planning Board on the identification and protection of historic resources. This testimony is submitted in fulfillment of the commission's responsibilities under these statutes. We submitted our formal recommendation in writing to the Planning Board last week for inclusion in the official record. And this evening, we are summarizing our findings. 333 Elmwood Avenue is a documented historic resource identified in the township's historic preservation element and originally surveyed in the 1986 Essex County Historic Resource Survey. It was originally known as the Marcus L. Ward Home and is the site of substantial historical, architectural, and cultural significance within the community. The Ward Home is closely associated with Marcus L. Ward, former governor of New Jersey, and represents a unique example of an early 20th century planned residential community. Designed by noted architect John Russell Pope and set within a landscape designed by the Olmsted Brothers firm, the site is a cohesive and highly intact example of an important period in American architectural and landscape design. First opened in 1927, the Manor House is a centerpiece of Pope's original design. The superintendent's residence, constructed in 1939 and designed in a complementary architectural style, is one of only a few early buildings on the site that remains visible from the public right-of-way. It plays a critical role in conveying the historic character of the property along Elmwood Avenue to the public. Both structures are designed in the Tudor Revival or English cottage style, exhibited by their stone facades, slate roofs, copper gutters, steeply pitched gable end roofs, leaded pane windows, arches, and multiple chimneys. The site plan application before you proposes, among other items, alterations and additions to the manor house, the full demolition of the superintendent's residence, and the construction of 3 new garden cottages in its place. The commission finds the proposed demolition of the superintendent's residence would result in a substantial and irreversible loss of a significant historic resource, a loss made even more impactful by its prominence as one of the most publicly visible buildings on the site. Its removal would eliminate an important architectural component of the campus and diminish the integrity of the site as a whole. The proposed site alterations, including the additions to the manor house, the removal of mature trees, the introduction of new cottage structures, would erode the historic landscape design and disrupt the open and picturesque setting that defines the property. Further, the orientation of the proposed cottages, with their rear facades facing the street, presents a diminished and inactive streetscape that undermines the campus's historic openness and visibility. This configuration turns the development inward, reducing its visual and civic engagement within the public realm and making the site feel less welcoming and accessible from the street. The commission also finds that the proposed additions and alterations to the manor house are not consistent with the historic design intent of the campus. The manor house is the focal point of the original composition, and its relationship to the surrounding open space is essential. The proposed changes would diminish that prominence, alter key interior and exterior features, and disrupt the spatial organization that defines the site. It was cited previously that this was in the design for the manor house. The alterations and additions were in concert with the Secretary of Interior's standards for the treatment of historic properties. But I'd like to take a moment just to note that this Department of National Interior has forced treatments for historic properties. One of which is reconstruction, which is not applicable here because the site is still existing. The other is preservation, restoration, and rehabilitation. In both the context of a treatment for preservation and restoration, additions are not permitted. Only under rehabilitation do they recommend additions, and that is what the applicant has chosen to pursue. But to be clear, the commission is in favor of preservation of the manor house and or restoration, which is why we gave the comments we gave and reached the conclusions we reached. The commission also notes that the property is likely eligible for listing on the state and national register of historic places and likely would also meet local designation standards, as the architect John Russell Pope is one of the most prominent American architects of the early 20th century. Pope is nationally recognized for designing landmark civic buildings, including the Jefferson Memorial and the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. The presence of a Pope-designed complex in Maplewood is both rare and significant, elevating the importance of the site well beyond the local level. The loss or inappropriate alterations of buildings within this complex would therefore represent not only a local impact, but the diminishment of a resource associated with one of the country's most distinguished architects. With state and national designation, the site would be eligible for historic rehabilitation credits and other funding mechanisms that would support a preservation-based redevelopment approach. The commission is more than willing to offer its support for such a nomination. Based on these findings, the commission concludes that the application as currently proposed would result in significant and unmitigated harm to an important historic resource and is not consistent with the master plan. The preservation element, which is part of the master plan, calls for safeguarding historic resources, discouraging unnecessary demolition, and promoting appropriate context-sensitive alterations. The master plan further recognizes that Maplewood's historic built environment is a key component of its identity and should be protected from redevelopment. Accordingly, the Commission recommends that the Planning Board reject the application as currently submitted. We strongly encourage the applicant to pursue an alternative approach that prioritizes the retention, rehabilitation, and adaptive reuse of the existing historic structures. Such an approach would allow for continued evolution of the site to meet contemporary needs while preserving the historic character and integrity that make this property a unique and valuable asset to the township. The Commission is available to work with the board and the applicant to support a more context-sensitive and preservation-oriented design if determined to be appropriate. We appreciate the board's careful consideration. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony. Should the board or the applicant have any questions, please address them this evening.
Do any members of the planning board have any questions for Ms. Malsby?
I actually have
Certainly.
a question. You were the author of the letter dated May 8th, is that correct?
We have subcommittees and we work on them together collectively, a subcommittee of 3.
And was this letter presented to the commission to vote upon?
So again, we have a subcommittee, and because we didn't have a meeting and before this meeting was held, we didn't have an opportunity to have a vote because we have to have public meetings.
So this was not voted on at a public meeting, that's correct?
So again, we had a subcommittee, but we didn't have the opportunity to have a public meeting. We would have had to have a special meeting. We have to notice, and there was not time.
So this letter is the opinion of you said 3 members of the subcommittee, correct?
So again, there was, for the Manor House, as you noted previously, the design has not changed. The chair at the time in 2015 issued a letter that we also relied on.
Thank you.
Are there any members of the public who have any questions for Ms. Malsby regarding her testimony? All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Please go ahead, Mayor.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is the one that has to be green, not red. Everything else has to be red. We have one thing here. Okay. Anyway, your question you got was 3 members of the township committee. I'm sorry, 3 members of the Historic Preservation Commission wrote the letter because you can't have 4 because
Correct. You can't have any more, right?
But was there any conversation at a full HPC meeting in which this project was discussed?
Yes, that's true. That's a good point, Mayor DeLuca. We did discuss this property at multiple meetings, and we actually meet and have our annual retreat at the Founders Room, and we lamented many times about the proposed demolition of that, and we were all in agreement that that would be a great loss for the community.
And is it normal practice for the HPC to, after they have a full discussion of a project of some matter before them, they assign it to a subcommittee to draft letters or opinions?
Yes, this is our typical process.
Thank you.
Certainly. Please go ahead, Ms. Latham.
This is for the applicant. The building that's due to be demolished, how is it being used now?
It is currently vacant, as was testified to. It's been vacant since 2013. That was the last time an employee lived in it.
Thank you. And I don't know if this would be a question for the architect. I apologize, but am I correct in saying that the building would not be suitable for adaptive reuse because of the desire to be ADA compliant?
I believe Mr. Breen did testify to that. I can recall him if needed, but he did testify that they had evaluated the possibilities for bringing it into compliance and found that it was unsuitable.
Thank you.
Can I ask further about that? Can you share why it was found to be unsuitable?
For ADA compliance?
Like, could you not incorporate an elevator or whatnot to?
Can you, I'm sorry, Mr. Breen, please. Thank you.
We did extensive studies. How would we rehab the existing building? The existing building from 1939 is inaccessible for anyone on the second floor. So we did studies to see where we could incorporate an elevator to the building. That structurally was really complicated. Combining with all the interior walls being load bearing, we couldn't move things around without extensive structural work. The MEP systems are of the 1939 vintage. So the building was deemed just inaccessible and not appropriate for today's senior living.
Thank you.
I have a question for one of our fellow board members, board member and Mayor Vic DeLuca. Did this,
Wait, does Mr. DeLuca need to be sworn in?
Usually sworn at.
Okay, I just wanted to check.
yeah, it's just a process question. This would have gone through, as per our ordinance, a demolition review. I don't sit on that committee. You do. Was there a review and what was the result of that?
So it's not in a residential zone.
Oh, and so it didn't go through demolition review for that reason.
It was discussed, but it wasn't a formal, there wasn't a formal demolition review because the ordinance calls for residential property or any properties in a residential zone.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from planning board? Nope.
I do have one.
Sure.
Yeah, for Ms. Malsby. Your letter, which again is very detailed and helpful. Thank you very much for the consideration that goes into these. I have a question on the on page 4 of your letter. You talk about the master plan alignment, and specifically page 87 and 88, that the master plan emphasizes Maplewood's historic built environment as a key part of the attractiveness and sense of place, and calls upon the township to protect historic resources from new development that would be implemented through demolitions rather than historic preservation. Can you define for us your understanding of historic resources?
So we would consider, we have different relationships with those resources. In some cases, we're advisory, some cases we're regulatory, but we would consider, anything that has possible historic significance a historic resource. And that's why it would have been included in the element of the master plan for the historic preservation.
So not something that has been designated
Correct.
historic resource, but anything that, like, who defines a historic resource?
So when we did the preservation element, that was basically us saying these are the properties that we think have potential historic significance, and that's why we included them. And in some cases, we've done more research than others, but these are all sites that we believe might have some historic significance. And then when something comes before the planning board and we do further research in preparation for a meeting like tonight, we compile those findings and share those with you.
And this was in the historic element. Was this property determined to be a contributing historic resource?
So this property isn't part of a district. It's an individual location as testified by the prior planner. So it's not something the commission hasn't surveyed, but the county actually did survey this back in 1986 as an individual site, and did note its historic characteristics and described it as an English country style, which someone had cited earlier, English cottage style.
So because it's considered a district, is it
Not a district, an individual site.
an individual site?
And that applies to the entire property?
So the entirety of 333 Elmwood, the whole property.
Right, the whole property, right,
Right.
okay.
So is it, so then is it HPC's position that it is ineligible to be designated as a local landmark? because because of its designation at the state level?
So it hasn't been designated. Someone testified to that, and I'm sorry that was unclear in her letter because it's not officially designated, but it meet the criteria likely to be designatable. The state would have to make that determination, or the federal government would make that determination in terms of state and national. So that's not something the commission could actually provide a nomination. I mean, we could help draft a nomination. We could send a letter of support for a nomination at that level. All we're able to designate is locally. And we have not locally designated this site, but we did include it in the most recent element and acknowledged its historic significance. And it's a site that we, if it was retained, we could consider.
But HPC, what I'm getting at, could designate this as a local historic resource.
I mean, we'd have to have it presented. We'd have to weigh in on that, but we could review that, and it's designed by a famous architect. There's 7 criteria, which we talked about before when we presented the element. We would weigh against the 7 criteria and take a vote.
No, I understand there's a process for that, but I guess I'm asking why that hasn't happened to date.
Right, I know. I wish we could have designated already, but it costs a lot of time and money. The research is extensive, and it's a lengthy process. And we're lucky enough to have several historic properties in town and districts that we're working on. And so, as volunteers, we can only take on so much. But that doesn't mean that it's not designatable.
Understood. Thank you for your response.
I just have a quick question. And maybe it's too theoretical for you to answer, but the last survey was in 1986, right? The county did it. Would the additions that have happened would they have already impacted the integrity of the structure?
Of the manor house?
Yeah. Would that
Proposed additions?
Yeah, no, not the ones proposed, but haven't they already completed a couple additions?
Have the additions that they've done so far?
Yeah, well, how does
I'd have to review those. I'm not as familiar with those. Yeah.
question, I guess.
But I think, the National Department of National Interior does speak to the scale of the additions. So sometimes if it's a more modest addition, it doesn't impact the integrity as much as like a large scale addition like they're contemplating now.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public who wish to comment on this application, either in support of or in opposition to this application? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment session. Nobody spoke up, nobody raised their hand.
Go.
We have another application. So at this point, are there any members of the planning board who wish to share their thoughts on this application? Please go ahead, Mayor.
I just have a procedural question. Does their attorney wrap up before we have a comment or?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Given the hour, and I know you have another application, we will defer that or waive that so that you can proceed.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. I apologize.
Okay, I just want to make sure I knew the process. So I have been to many ribbon cuttings and groundbreakings at Winchester Gardens, and I think they're a tremendous resource in the community. I think that what we saw tonight for the building, the 2 new additions, I voted on it in 2015 and supported it, and I would support those tonight. I have difficulty with the 6 units, though. Winchester now has 308 units, and this would bring them to 314. It would require taking down nearly 20 trees.
21.
21. That's even more than nearly. Would require a variance. When I look at the tree ordinance, these are specimen trees, and it says that they're only to be taken down if they're in poor health or disease. We have no testimony tonight that exists. We heard some testimony about some thinning out, but I mean, they seem to be going pretty well. Or else it says it stands in the way of development projects approved by the planning board or board of adjustment or are permitted by right of zoning. So we heard that there's a variance required. So the permit by zoning, by right of zoning is gone because they need to have a variance in order to do that. So this is the problem I have. I do agree a lot with what the HPC has said about this building. I mean, at some point we have to say no to tear downs and sort of respect our history of our community. People tell me all the time that we've got to keep Maplewood Maplewood. It's, you know, it's important. And so I'm not against progress. I voted for a lot of things. But this one, I think, tearing the building down to build 6 units, and I will tell you that these units are probably needed for people to live there. They're accessible units. I think they're, you know, they're sharp. They look really good. 2 bedrooms and a den. You know, you know, accessibility is very important for our housing options in town. But I think overall, to build more units, to go from 308 to 314, to take down 21 trees, when I guess the question is why? What's you know, why? So I'm not going to vote for this because it means that if I approve this, if I vote for this and I vote for the variance, then I am approving the 21 trees taken down. And that's what you all have to think about. Because if you vote yes, then you're giving them the right to take down the 21 trees. So I'm voting no.
I have a question for Mr. Kaplan. I recognize that this is one application, but it is one application asking about 2 different pieces, I'll call them. The 2 additions to the manor house that were approved 11 years ago. And is it possible for the planning board to?
The vote?
Yeah.
Yes.
We could, so there could be a motion for one or the other piece of this application.
There could be a motion for the entire thing. There could be a motion for just one piece and split it into 2 votes.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Sure. I'm going to jump in. So as the other elected official on the planning board, I want to echo what was already expressed, not because it was expressed by another elected official. I'm very familiar with this, with Winchester Gardens. I've been there on official business as an elected official, but I've also been there on personal business too. I have friends who have their family there. It is an exceptional property. The level of service that it provides in aging in place, in rehabilitation, in care to the aging population with dignity and respect, and with high quality medical care is second to none. And the presentation tonight by their team was also, in my opinion, very impressive, including by council and by the planner. Please leave your card with me before you leave tonight. But I'm surprised, given all of that, given what an exceptional community this is, given the high quality, and given the presentation and preparation and the thoughtful architectural features to keep some level of continuity in historic nature and characteristics, that there are open questions that should not be open, given the level of preparation and thoughtfulness that went into it, such as with respect to the trees. Why don't we have more information about that? Such as with respect to restoration and adaptive reuse. Yes, we did hear from the architect that it would be difficult to make these units ADA accessible. Of course, we need that for this population in particular, but there isn't a lot of information beyond difficult or nearly impossible. That's a very broad term. And when we're having these very technical hearings, we expect a lot more, especially from an exceptional team like yours. That's what we say outside of these hearings in common language. What makes it exceptionally difficult? What are those technical inefficiencies or impossibilities? What is the hardship? And the only way that I can sort of, based on the information that we received prior to tonight, and I always do my homework, and what we've heard tonight thus far, I don't have answers to those questions. I'm only left with the following: that difficult means that it's just cheaper to do it this way. It's just cheaper to do it this way. It's just cheaper to do it this way. And I have a problem with that because there are a lot of cons to this. Yes, I'm a big housing proponent. I work in housing professionally. I believe that we need to provide more housing, especially for aging in place. We're all growing older every single day. But there's a lot of detriments to that, to this plan, including the trees, including the density, in what is otherwise a beautiful, exceptional property. And I invite people to go and visit if you haven't visited. I mean, the history there, the architecture, the beauty. I mean, you could really learn a lot. You can get an architectural lesson just by walking around there. So I'm also inclined not to support this with heavy heart because I otherwise really support this community. And I'm really, really proud that we have this in Maplewood for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daffos. Is there anyone else from the planning board who wants to share their thoughts?
There you go. All right. I just have a question. Did we decide if they need it or if they require a variance?
We did not.
Not decided.
Right. I don't know how we have that discussion. I don't know if you have.
Discussion, and you want to vote on whether or not a variance is required as a board,
Right.
as you interpret the testimony of both your professional and the applicant professionals. And everybody's heard their testimony and has a basic understanding of what the ordinance says, so the board can vote on whether or not they interpret the ordinance to require a variance in this situation or not.
Mr. Lemanowitz, would you want to share your opinion on whether or not a variance is needed?
Yes, I'm trying to find this section again. Basically, the ordinance has three different setbacks. One for a single story, less than 30, a 2-story, less than 40, and then 2 stories or more over 40. So the issue here is this a 2-story building? The definition, again, goes back to Moskowitz. That definition, I would say, has got some age to it and may not really address current housing styles, I'll say. You know, we're not building 45 by 24 ranches anymore. So the definition is a little tough, but I guess what I'm saying is there was the one exhibit of the front of the buildings that showed, again, that the attic space was taller than the living space. So, and again, the calculations, I believe, if they're done, would show that it's 2-story. And the issue is, do we decide do we have the discussion if it's a 1-story or 2-story, or take the conservative approach, say it is 2, and decide on the variance, which might be the safer way to go, I'll say, because that way we're not, because I haven't had a chance, like I said, to look at these calculations, because I don't have the information to really advise you that hard and steady and fast that it is or is not based upon Moskowitz.
Okay. Because so is it 1-story up to 30? Because the buildings,
Yeah,
as proposed, are less than 24 feet high.
Right, it's 1 story up to 30
Right,
or 2 stories up to 40.
right.
So if it's 2 stories at 20,
I guess part of me is like the living space. Part of my personal thinking, my personal opinion is the living space is all one floor and the building is less than 30. So that gets me to it's 1 story. But I know that that's not as technical as,
the way Moskowitz puts it is that there's a calculation of how much of the, we'll call it attic, because that's what everything, portion of the attic space is more than 5 feet as a proportion of that area directly below it. And that's the numbers we don't have. I looked at it, I think doesn't qualify as a half. I think it qualifies as a full second story.
okay.
Not a 1.5, I think it's 2.
Because there was a 40% number that was shared, but I think that was 40%, less than 40% of the total
Right, and
attic
that's-
space
As
is
I read
5
the
feet.
definition, that's determining is it a half story or a full story
Right, okay,
above the first.
okay. Thank you.
And again, the definition of stories is a challenge in most ordinances.
Right.
And unfortunately, this is why.
So the more conservative approach is to say it's 2 stories, but they need and they would need a variance.
Correct. If you believe that the variance proofs were given, and Ms. Holmquist did give proofs on the variance.
Right. Okay. Um,
Sure. This is more from the heart rather than a planning perspective, because I've been taking some time to look at the unit mix. You've got 72 assisted living, you've got an aging community. We all know that. Many of us have had parents and elders who have looked at Winchester Gardens, and I'm embarrassed to say that I've probably only been there once or twice in my 23 years in the community. But the one thing of note that struck me is you've got 72 beds that are assisted living, 30 beds, nursing beds, which I assume is either memory care or not necessarily as active. And the addition of these 6 family units from 40 to 46 allows for the community to be more active and have more active residents. So I'm just saying this as a point that I enjoy the idea of having more active residents there and activating the community that much more by having 6 more households. Again, not a planning thing, but just bringing a little bit more life to the community. And I support that part of the proposal.
I too acknowledge the need for housing for those that are aging in place and that to make this a more active community. However, at the end of the day, as Mayor DeLuca pointed out, and committee member Daffis, the loss of the trees and a lot of unanswered questions that we have before us today, I don't feel comfortable voting in favor of this.
thank you, Mr. Sullivan.
I find this challenging because I think both sides have compelling arguments. But I'm with the mayor and others. The trees do it for me. I don't believe the applicant has proved the negative.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson. I think I showed my hand earlier this evening when I expressed my concern about the loss of not just mature trees, but some very large specimens. While I agree that we did not hear very much about the proposed building to be torn down, being adapted, and I recognize that there would be challenges there. There's part of me that wonders if that building could be adapted for some other purpose related to the operations of the facility. I do feel like the team went to extraordinary lengths in order to ensure that the proposed additions and the cottages would fit within the context of the property, within the historic nature of the existing buildings. And so I appreciate that. I think I would be in favor, I would be in favor of approving the additions to the manor house. I think that, as I said, they were previously approved. They were designed, again, with great care to fit within the manor house, to add to the ability of residents to still see the great lawn, to enjoy that beauty, to increase sunlight into the space, to provide additional space that would be useful to the residents for different purposes. So I would be in favor of that, but I'm significantly more hesitant about the cottages. And the tear down, not only the trees concern me, the tear down of the building concerns me, and the tear down of the building, the historic nature of the architecture of that building, the historic significance of that building is what makes me hope that Winchester Gardens could find some sort of adaptive reuse, even if it's not for housing. And I also agree with other comments that have already been made, the need for housing to age in place. But I'd like to know if that building could be used for some other purpose and 6 units could be placed somewhere else, and someplace that doesn't require taking down not just 21 trees, but I mean, one of them has a caliber of 36 inches, 4 of them between 30 and 60 inches in diameter. So replacing those 21 trees with 17 that are between 2.5 and between 2 and 4.5 inches just does not seem like an adequate replacement value. So that's my opinion.
First, I take no issue with the variances. My interpretation would be that this is a one-story building. Therefore, I don't believe a variance would even be required for the setback. Nor do I take issue with the parallel parking spaces having a length 1 foot short of the required. So that aside, I would say the site has undergone significant alterations in the past and still retains its significant historic value per the HPC letter. So I see no reason that these carefully considered alterations would negatively affect that historic value going forward. This quality architecture, quality materials, carefully considered to be complementary to both the history and the context. So I am okay with the manor house additions. I do wish the library footprint preserved the clearance at the breezeway connection, but I think it was very deftly handled by the architect, and I understand the reason for the program. But I don't see sufficient cause here to not respect the 2015 approvals of this board on the manor house. As to the cottages, as we have trust and respect for this institution, who I think we all believe is a good neighbor, I accept their premise that these changes are essential to preserve and expand their standard of care. I don't see other sites to build on here, short of the open space lawn in the rear, which I don't think is a good place to build. It's not a perfect plan, I concede. I don't feel the retaining wall is Olmsted-esque, but I appreciate its need to preserve universal accessibility. The size and the density of the buildings, I think, though, are appropriate to the residential context. I understand the argument about trees, but I think they're outweighed by the use. The thing that concerns me the most is the demolition of the building, the superintendent's house building, that is. And while it's unfortunate, it is a charming structure. If it's not useful and the institution doesn't have use for it, which is always preferred, I don't see a reason to not take it down. It's not original Pope design. It wasn't a part of the Olmsted plan. And there have been other structures that have been significantly altered on this site. I also don't see what our jurisdictional authority is to treat it as a historic resource. The site still retains significant historic value. So I see no reason not to approve this application.
Thank you, Mr. Fryatt. Are there any members of the planning board who wish to consider making a motion? Did you want to share a comment, Ms. Ward? Oh, now you're off.
Oh,
There you go. Now you're on.
really terrible at these. I just want to echo that I agree with everything that Mr. Fryatt said in regards to the 1-story and the variances, that the additions fit well, are acceptable for the Manor House in the 2015 decision. And that, the cottages seem well designed. I mean, we hate to see trees, and I wish we heard a little bit more about the condition of the trees, but they are replacing them with 17. So I think I would be supportive of this application.
Thank you, Ms. Ward.
I did try to find some pictures of the superintendent's residence, and it was a little hard to find a redeeming historical value just based on the pictures that were presented. I also am not sure about the passion of preserving that particular structure. And based on that, although the trees are killing me because I feel like it's trees versus active living. And I understand that, and I would hope that more attempts would be able to be made for the trees. I also believe that preserving a structure that doesn't really appear to have a redeeming value and useful value, and instead providing 6 units that could provide and activate the campus a bit more, I would also support the application.
Thank you, Ms. Steig.
I've been to visit residents who live in the villas, who live in different parts of Winchester Gardens, and it really is a treasure to the community. There is, it's challenging because there's a balance to strike. And when I was going over this application, for me, it came down to trees or places for people to age in place. I wasn't so much struck at preserving the building because it's been out of use. And while I do wish we had heard more about the specific challenges of adaptive reuse, especially since there's more of kind of apartment living in other parts of the facility. I get that this is about money, like Dean said, right? At the end of the day, it would be a financial challenge, and probably that's all to change that into a residence that has an elevator and is more kind of apartment style, like some of the other parts of the facility. And then, to look at the caliper size of at least 3 of those trees, I mean, 60 inches, 45, those are trees that have been around before any of those buildings. But with that said, I think about the residents who I've met at Winchester Gardens and how much they enjoy living there, and the facilities that they have and the beauty that they have. And I have to say, to have more housing there for me kind of outweighs some of the other things. And I would vote in favor of this.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Yep, certainly. Go ahead, Ms. Latham.
So my vote would be split if we had a split vote. I'm in favor of the additions, but I'm not in favor of the demolition of the other building.
Thank you. So I'm going to make a motion that we reaffirm, if that's the right verb, the approval of the additions to the Manor House. Is there anyone who would like to second that?
Second. Mayor DeLuca,
Yes.
Daffis,
Yes.
Ms. Latham,
Yes.
Mr. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Fryatt,
Yes.
Ms. Scott,
Yes.
Ms. Steig,
Yes.
Ms. Ward,
Yes.
and Chair Pashota.
Yes. Now, at this point, is there anyone who wishes to make a motion with respect to the other part of this application, the cottages?
Well, we either have to move to deny it or to approve it.
And so if
I would move to deny. Go ahead.
Want to vote on the variance or not?
what do you recommend?
We can vote.
Well, wait, hold on.
It's really,
Wait a minute, before you answer. If I'm not mistaken, Mayor DeLuca is going to submit a motion to deny, in which case it's a moot point.
But
I think we need legal guidance.
Oh,
Right.
can you use the mic? I'm sorry. Yep.
a variance-free application might have a different standard than an application with a variance. So it may affect someone's voting.
okay.
So can you walk us through the option here again?
Well, you can put forth a motion with a variance. Say, I approve it with the variance, or I disapprove it. It should be in the affirmative and everybody votes in the negative if you want to disapprove it. Or we can just have a flat out vote on the variance itself and then vote on the cottages.
Do you want to have the other attorney?
Oh, certainly.
Sorry, if I could just request, I think the clarification is, rather than voting on whether you're approving the variance, the question is there a variance? Like, do you determine that a variance is required based on the facts presented before voting on?
I think that's right.
Okay.
I would move that based on our professional engineer's interpretation that he provided to us, that a variance is required. So I would move in favor of saying yes, that there is a variance.
Is there a second?
Motion?
Yes,
Yes.
that is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
No.
Ms. Latham?
Clarity, am I voting whether or not it's a variance or not? Oh, okay, yes.
Mr. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Fryatt?
No.
Ms. Scott?
No.
Ms. Steig?
No.
Ms. Ward?
No.
Chair Pashota?
Yes.
No variance is required.
So no variance is
Means
required.
you can't deny the project.
Doesn't necessarily mean you can't deny it.
Right, because that's not the guidance you just gave us.
Right. This was just to decide whether or not a variance is needed, not to decide whether or not we approve.
Correct.
We should be specific, by the way. The variance in question that we just voted on was for the setback.
Correct.
There was a second variance about the parking length.
I was talking.
Parking space.
Wait, I thought we were voting on the height variance, whether it's 1 story or 2 stories, and whether or not.
That's about the setback.
That is
That is
correct.
about the setback.
My motion was about
The
the setback required by it being determined to be a two-story building.
okay, yes.
So now that it is permitted by zoning, the tree ordinance is out the window.
The tree ordinance is out the window.
But you still have a second variance.
I'm not moving for that variance.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the proposal for the cottages.
Mayor DeLuca,
No.
Mr. Daffis,
No.
Ms. Latham,
No.
Mr. Carlson,
No.
Mr. Friant,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Ms. Steig,
Yes.
Ms. Ward,
Yes.
and Chair Pashota.
No.
Motion doesn't carry.
Doesn't carry. Oh, and we're all here. Right, right. All right. Well then, thank you for your presentation. Thank you to all of your experts for their presentations and their diligence. It is 10:21. We don't start new business after, is it 10:30? Yeah, so let's take a 5-minute recess.
Don't our rules, Karen?
What?
Don't our rules say we don't start anything new after 10?
I was just about to confer with Adele on what time our cutoff is.
I think it's
far as I'm concerned, I don't think.
We're gonna wrap this up. Yeah. I don't understand. Like the architect, right?
How we doing? Hanging in there. Yourself?
Don't get it.
And so I'm like. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to resume, and this is going to be brief. What? No, I think that's Nick.
That's what.
Am I allowed?
Yeah, of course.
Am I allowed?
Ordered.
I need one of these at home.
When I came,
Because I have a wonderful husband.
I know, when I came tonight, I was like, my first complaint was like, oh, I didn't bring my.
I left mine at home. He brought it to me. I made it. I left it at home. No. This is wonderful husband. No, this is a wonderful, wonderful husband. Oh, absolutely.
Nice to run into you.
He did. He brought me tea this morning. Put it right there on the desk next to me. He is. So, the next item on our agenda is case 25-05 for 588 Valley Street. Given the hour and that application, the applicant has agreed to postpone until the July 14th meeting. No further notice is necessary. That meeting will take place in this room at 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday, July 14th. So, so that means that the only other agenda item for this evening is if there are any members of the public who wish to address the planning board for any reason, they're welcome to come forward. Seeing none, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Thank you all. See you on June 9th.
Thank you.
June 9th? June 9th is our next meeting. Thank you.
Oh, I thought we could have got through it.
Oh, yeah.
I was ready to go.
Thank you so much. Oh, let me turn this off now. Tell Rob. You got off pretty easy.
And the Ridgewood Road subdivision that we carried.
No, I want an architectural.
Thank you. Have a good.
I know. Down. I've never been there. I mean, I've been in the.
Just go on the property and.
No, they'd have to arrange like an architectural tour for the people outside. I realize you can't just trespass. But
Right.
like if they
No,
ever.
but I would love to
did it,
see the
I know,
property.
I would like a tour.
I would love a tour.
Someone
Yes, we should.
someone should
I
recommend
often
it to
do.
them.
I often do like,